Hi, everyone. My name is Sakhi. It's a pleasure and honor to be speaking to all of you from this very meaningful platform today. Um, at Google, I lead a team of policy specialists, and I'm joined by my dear friend and esteemed colleague, Shiviinder Singh, who manages Google Asia Pacific's Global Investigations function. We're both chairs on the Disability Alliance in Google India, and as passionate allies, we're honored to be here today. Just like my name, we are both only speaking as friends today, friends of neurodiversity. The reason I say this is that neither of us is a certified expert in neurodiversity. I'm sure you've already heard of enough certified experts from distinguished personalities in that regard today. So, what we hope to provide you is an arm Aadmi take, a friend's point of view on neurodiversity.
Well, thank you, Sakhi, for having both of us here. We do this every year, and it's really a pleasure doing this with you, trying to spread awareness of neurodiversity amongst the community. And at Google, this is an ERG which we have, and we try to help people understand this issue. Sakhi, talking about the subject, how do you explain neurodiversity to someone who's new to the subject? Just as a layman, if somebody does not understand this.
Wow, yeah. Well, the term encompasses so much, Shivi, but I think neurodiversity is simply a word used to explain the unique ways that people's brains can work, right? While all brains develop similarly, no two brains function just alike. And so, if I speak a bit more scientifically, um, being neurodivergent means having a brain that works differently from the average or what's called the neurotypical person. And so, ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia are all examples of neurodiverse conditions. But I want to say that these are all merely diagnostic labels. They're labels used to explain the diverse ways in which a person can think, they can learn, they can process, and they can behave. And as with all people, we all have our talents and challenges. To me, Shavi, neurodiversity, and like you said, for a layman like me, neurodiversity is very simply the concept that when it comes to a human brain and our nervous systems, people don't all end up the same. They can't. And brain differences are normal, they are not deficits.
Well, that's a very interesting thing, and sometimes I think of it like if we were all alike, how would new things come up in this world, and why would people think differently, and the world won't develop what it
How
has? We
boring.
will, yeah, and we're going to talk about it. But Saki, what can we do about all this?
Shivi, and I think this is a very personal opinion, okay, folks. So I my favorite quote since childhood has been Mahatma Gandhi's "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." Somehow just stuck with me ever since I'd read his biography. And it's not as tough as it sounds. Each of us can do our teeny tiny bit to make a difference, right? Be it speaking up, spreading awareness, being more inclusive in our individual worlds, or together building a more diverse, a more inclusive workspace for everyone. We see that people with minorities often experience some level of othering, right? So they're potentially marginalized, discriminated against, or even oppressed. And so, by learning and recognizing and appreciating all of these differences, we can help address that inequality, be it in our home or our workplace, and foster more inclusion. If I were to share a personal example, my first lesson in labeling or the lack of acceptance came very close to home. My mother has been running a preschool for the last 20 years, and so she deals with kids in the age group of 1.5 to 3.5 years old. And this is, that crucial age when neurodiversity can be spotted. And I've seen her spend hours and hours counseling parents because a parent's first reaction is no. Why my child? Right? They are so overwhelmed with grief and shock. They don't want to accept their child as he or she is. And I've seen my mother burn the midnight oil, trying to come up with new ways to show them how their child is special, um, to show them the talent that the child has, and at the same time showering the kid with even more love and care. Right? I've seen that even at the tender age of 2 years, she would make sure the unique skill set the child has is harnessed. And I've seen them all turn out to be wonderful human beings. Last year, we attended her first student's wedding. Okay, that's how old he is. And he's a wonderful human being. He's a dentist today. So I hope it gives all of us some motivation.
Wow.
And talking about motivation, I was actually, Shivi, at the India Inclusion Summit in Bangalore last month. We spoke about this, right? And it was a great testament of how people with disability and neurodivergent persons are stars. They are stars and they're right.
Yeah.
Seeing them, I felt very small. I felt tiny, like I'm doing nothing. They were all so inspiring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, coming back to your question, it all starts with being thoughtful, right? Being intentional, being thoughtful. Simple example is some neurodistinct people may prefer the person first language, right? So they might want to say, I am a person with dyspraxia,
Mhm.
versus others might prefer the identity first language. And so I say, I am a dyspraxic person. How long would it take for us to just find out their preference and address them with respect, right? Like just treat others with respect, be thoughtful.
Mhm.
And so I think for all our friends today, The Invisible Majority is a book I'd recommend. I know the authors personally, luckily, and they actually navigate a range of topics with lucid ease in this book. It goes from history to laws and to widespread social attitudes. And all along, they're addressing the crucial question of how do we make India a more inclusive nation?
Mhm. Nice. And we can talk about this for hours and hours, and it is such an interesting subject by itself. And yeah, but as someone, as a parent of a neurodivergent child, myself being a father of a 20-year-old now, my memory goes back to when my daughter was born, and we found that she has extraordinary skills of remembering things. In terms of, she was even faster in her milestones, in picking up all types of action and giving cues. And we thought that, great, everything is going great, up until when she started going to school. She started miswriting a D as a B and a B as a D, and writing three the other way, and juggling with numbers. And this was a problem which was happening, and sometimes going wrong in concepts around mathematics. And initially I thought probably it could be just something which is she's not understood or not following. But then then you know and I still remember in those days there was a movie, I'm forgetting the name, which was a very famous one with Amir Khan, and
Tare Zameen Par?
yeah, yeah, Tare Zameen Par. And I saw that, and it kind of opened my eyes. I said, it could be this kind of an issue." And so we went for a psychological evaluation, and she came up with very good numbers, but she was also having some kind of a learning disability on the side. And it's been a journey for all of us, like, to say that it's been easy is not correct. It's been challenging for us to find the right school for her, the right teacher, because everything changes. But we've realized that these people have extraordinary skills also in some ways. And that's what I wanted to kind of discuss with you about that more today. Like, how do we actually take it as a strength and not as a weakness? Yeah.
You nailed it, Shivi. So, so true. And I think as you talk about extraordinary skills, it also comes down to what is the business benefit of this, right? Because if there is a skill, I'm sure it can be put to some business benefit, and then it makes more sense to the capitalist society.
Yeah. And to that extent, it sounds a little selfish to say that we have a business interest in that. But as humans, we all are motivated to get at the end of the value chain and say, what is the value out of it? Like,
Yeah.
okay, are these people a little less efficient? They are not, because clearly, because if we go back into history, we've seen that almost all inventions, whether it is pertaining to disability or it has been done in a new field, has been either done by a person with disability, or a neurodivergent person like Alan Turing, uh, Albert Einstein, Richard Branson, Henry Ford. They all had some or the other neurodivergent issue, but they never actually stopped their dreams, and they actually came up with things which have changed the world today. And so the whole point is there to see, like, if you want to actually invent a bulb, then you have to have a mind of thinking about something which has not been done up until now, and then only you can think. Otherwise, for me, I'm a normal person thinking in the same line. I would not be thinking into a different direction, which can be life changing experiences for others. And so while coming to work, JP Morgan, it's in the public domain also. It's written that their neurodiversity program had seen a productivity increase of 50% in teams that included autistic employees. And
Wow.
so, because these professionals are naturally adept in some skills which are critical to future of the work, something like, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and analytical skills, they are better, certainly better than others. So there is a business case in understanding and trying to see that this is where I think the rubber meets the road. Yeah.
You're so right, Shivi. And just talking about the autism program, right? I remember reading about research that showed that autism and dyslexia bestow special skill sets. And as you know, some of us might have heard of the Autism at Work program at SAP. It started with just three people who were hired from the autism spectrum, and the best of them was actually worth three engineers. And this is because they had amazing memory. They
Hmm.
could repeat tasks over and over again with extreme efficiency
Right.
and accuracy, right? So, skills that come in handy if you have, say, a product testing environment. So,
Yeah.
it's just like you said, they can actually be more efficient than neurotypical people, and that is what we should be harnessing.
Mhm.
And just given the fact that, you know, we have estimates suggesting 15 to 20% of the world's population is neurodiverse. Uh, let's remember to look at them as what they are and not as what they aren't, right? So we can truly build together a very, very advantageous workplace.
So, I'll refer one of your words that you said, that 15 to 20%. But the more challenging part is for people and organization regarding disclosure of disability or neurodivergence. So, how do you think we navigate this?
True. Uh, it is tough, Shivi, and I'll start by saying the choice to disclose should and is always only up to the individual, right? It's
Yeah.
up to no one else. What we can do is be understanding and empathetic. uh, I hear a lot of friends of mine saying that, oh, but I'm just not empathetic, I'm not the emotional kind, and I want to say that, remember, folks, empathy can be built, right?
Yeah.
So if you just really listen to the other person, just listen, active listening, you'll find in yourself a renewed stream of empathy. So be understanding, be empathetic. Um, the third thing I would say is, please, please, today and forever, let's avoid making assumptions, right? They never helped anyone. And
Yeah.
then the last is, for all of us to treat any disclosures as confidential, right? That, I think, is the rule of thumb. That is the law.
Right. Wonderful. Sakhi, I can only echo this, that I think thing is that sometimes we feel ashamed about telling about something where we are different, in a particular aspect. And I think the mind shift which is taking place today in businesses is not about culture fit, which was a couple of years back. It's about culture add.
And
And I think it is understood that more diverse minds, people, culture, voices, languages is going to only enrich especially when you're talking of solving large scale problems.
So true, so true. And I think that's the bottom line is it's a difference, or I am different does not mean I am wrong, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, beautifully said, Shri. You touched upon this a bit earlier. So let's bring this closer to our work, shall we? To technology.
right.
Shri, how do you think technology can help the neurodivergent?
Well, one thing I think is very very evident, that our uh, our world has multiple problems now. But I think if you see, most of the problems can be solved or are being solved by using technology, because what technology does is it actually allows the solution to be scaled and distributed at almost zero cost.
That
So
is so
things like, building up platforms, technology platforms, giving digital products is actually a great boon to people, in terms of affordability, spreading it, and also in availability all the time, which is cloud is making them available. And just to give you an example of, for example, you take communication. So if a non-verbal child or an adult who is struggling in this particular area, you can use technology in that. There are apps which are there which can actually assist people to do that. The other thing is, and I've seen this in my experience, when I read something, I probably do not understand it better, but if I'm listening to a podcast, I just tend to absorb uh, absolutely everything which is being said. So that's me. So in my case, like, this is my personal example which I'm seeing. And setting up your schedules in terms of when do you get up, how do you have, and think about. And I want to put a shameless plug here about, for example, our Google Calendar. It's such a great thing. You know exactly when you are going to have an alert 10 minutes before, 5 minutes before a meeting, and then it tells you. And it's not only office meeting, you can set it for anything. You can set it for eating your medicine, you can set it for eating, you're going to your gym, and you get more and more organized, and the stress goes down. And remembering, because I remember about 20-30 years back, we either had to write it down in our diary, or we had to remember it somehow. So it's a great
so
enabler.
true.
And another example, you must have seen that in restaurants, I think, the moment you sit down, you have digital devices where you can actually go and order food either before you go, or you can go there and sit down and choose. So again, for people who have difficulties, interacting and talking to other people, that can be there. And I think, Saki, you would have so many examples from at least for the last 2 years. How did you tackle the pandemic when we were all working from home alone?
Oh, I think the pandemic has a story for us all, right? I can think of YouTube as a good example, Shivi. Folks, again, not a shameless plug, but just the fact of my life. Uh,
It could be reels, it could be anything. Like, it's not, but yeah.
True, true. Yeah. For me, who doesn't use social media, I think YouTube Shorts was it.
Yeah.
The start and end of it, right? So YouTube Shorts, for example, when you're not going out, you're not able to meet people, was a very nice and time, not a time intensive way of just getting my dopamine for the day, right? So I think used in the right amounts for parents with neurodivergent children, technological devices could actually be a motivating tool, right? So you use a smartphone or a tablet as a motivation or as a reward. You use the iPad or a favorite gaming app when you want to reward positive behavior, so they get that dopamine kick. Or it could be after the completion of a normal chore, a homework, an assignment, anything of that sort. So obviously done in moderation, not extremes, but very simple examples of where technology can help just make them happy.
Yeah, and similar to that is in terms of learning. Now, sometimes people have struggle in learning concepts, and that is where I think audio visual, devices are great, because if you put a content and you have to explain somebody what does a perimeter actually comprise of? What is 2 pi r, uh, and how does it
Yeah.
actually roll out to be a function of pi and radius, and you can unfold it and you can show it on a device, and it's something like a representation which you'll never forget, rather than a 2D dimension of pen and paper, where it's an abstract idea for some people, at least for me. So great that we've talked about all this, and what are your closing thoughts about neurodiversity?
Honestly, Shivi, I think as closing thoughts, I wanted to each and everyone who's tuned in today, I want to say that you are a pioneer. You are pioneering change in your lives, in your communities, and your workplaces, right?
Right.
We're all, Shivi, you, me, we're all in this journey together. And I hope that you're as energized by today's summit as we are.
Yeah. Thank you, Saki. Once again, thank you for organizing this for us, and all the best to the forum for having a successful completion this year also. Thank
Of
you,
course.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.